And it was really important to me to be changing the system of agriculture that I was participating in.
Our business became modeled around supplying the large retailers in Atlantic Canada with broccoli.
As a province, we are working to find new ways to grow, process, and distribute food every day.
We then had the opportunity to take our farm fully organic right from the outset.
We could not continue taking fish out of the ocean at the rate that we were doing.
That no was just two letters of the word negotiate.
Good morning. I want to welcome everyone to this Devour event in the Village of Port Williams. Thank you all for coming. It's been a great turnout. We're very excited to see everyone coming out to support us. So I'm W. Kobe Millen. I'm the interim CEO of the Valley Regional Enterprise Network. This is the second year that we've sponsored a Devour event. I've been given notes to read from, which goes against my normal motif, but I'll indulge and be behaved and all of it. So we are pleased to be able to support this festival, Wolfville and the wider community of Kings County, and the growing and incredible successful celebration of film and food. The Valley Rand is working on behalf of its municipal and First Nations partners in the province of Nova Scotia to create a better business climate for the Annapolis Valley. One of the ways that we do this is to partner with other organizations and develop opportunities for business growth. Next page. As you all know, there's a growing recognition that intentional and ongoing innovation in business and agriculture and across all sectors is the way to add value, improve productivity, diversify, and pursue new market opportunities. We are very pleased and therefore to support this inspired panel discussion, which was brought together by Leah Ronaldo. Where's Leah?
Introducing another event.
Okay. So in her, and of course, Michael Howell, who are the visionary leaders of Devour, Food and Film Festival. So before Michael introduces the panel, I would like to thank the venue host of Wayfair Ale Society, caterers, Union Street Cafe in Berwick, and Brian Cottam of Wild Open Media in Kentville. And though it's not on my script, I'd like to thank Rachel Bryden, our Research Communications Officer, who's been instrumental in pulling this opportunity together. Please give her a hand. Thank you very much. So Brian will be filming the panel discussion so we can share it with agribusinesses who are able to make it today. So now, over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Kobe, and welcome everybody here to, I think this is event number 17 or 18 of what will be 95 by the time we're done on Sunday afternoon, at which point we head to Fogo Island and we do Devour Fogo next weekend. So one of the 9 events that we do nationally and internationally, in addition to the 5-day festival, which has now grown from a humble 1,000 people to what we expect will be 13,000 tickets or attendees sold by the end of the week this week. So we're really pleased. This began from very humble beginnings in 2009 when I, as a local business owner of a restaurant, realized that once sort of tourism season ended, things dried up here in the Annapolis Valley and in Nova Scotia. And I'd actually chosen to move to Wolfville because I felt it offered year-round opportunities. Well, I think we all understand the cyclical nature of the tourism business and how it affects other businesses that are related to it, i.e. food production and procurement, et cetera, et cetera. So we started in 2009, Slow Food Nova Scotia decided to emulate another film festival in Italy called the Slow Food on Film Festival in Bologna, which showed a lot of documentaries about the food system. So it was meant in the beginning for 2 things, to bring awareness of food and its relationship to community, to economy, and to society and health, but also to put bums in the seats of my restaurant. There was no denying that this was meant to be an economic development tool. I just didn't know what it was going to be when I started. Simply wanted people in my business in the shoulder season. Since then, we've grown to impact not only the restaurants in town, the restaurants in the region, the accommodations in the region, which if you try to find a room in Wolfville tonight or anywhere within 15 kilometers, you will be hard pressed to find one. It's meant to bring money and to this region. It's meant to bring awareness of this region. And as Leah and I and our team travel from Berlin to Los Angeles promoting the food and wine products of Nova Scotia, the excellence of our tourism facilities and infrastructure, and the quality of our products, we are always extolling those virtues no matter where we go. And so we're very proud of what we have here, and the people that are on this panel today exemplify the stuff that we're proud of. I'm very proud to know that I do business with every one of you, or have at some point myself, and continue to do so. And so we're really pleased that I have a direct and personal connection with our panel today. Just to introduce them, Andrew Rand from Rand's Land, Mike Lightfoot from Lightfoot and Wolfville Winery, where we were hauling chairs around at 6 this morning with Information Morning broadcasting live, Kirk Havercroft from Sustainable Blue, and of course Patricia Bishop from Taproot Farms in Valley, Flax,
Taproot Farm.
Taproot Farms, that's good. So without further ado, this is meant to bring you an inspiration. We have food as our greatest resource here. Various aspects of shipping it, selling it, making it, producing it, and taking it worldwide. This is meant to give you, our stakeholders in the region, the opportunity to explore innovators that are leading the way and have a great sort of robust discussion on the future of our region and our province. So without further ado, I want to introduce my friend, and luckily for me, future board member of Devour, Ted Grant.
Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this today. Thrilled to be an incoming board member to Devour, something that I'm extremely passionate about, and feel very fortunate that today this session is connected to Devour. So thanks a lot for having me. I also want to say a special thanks to Rachel, who's over there in the corner, for helping to pull this together, and probably a premature, and I'll do this at the end again, but a thanks to the panel for making their time available for an introductory session at Mike's beautiful winery, and for being here today, and the numerous emails that went out as well to get this coordinated. We're going to have a framework to this that will be kind of an agenda. It will be a little less formal than perhaps some panel discussions. Maybe it's just the nature of this team and myself. But we're going to, I'm going to give a slight introduction. Then we're going to allow each one of the panelists to tell their story and really connect for you folks why they're here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go into a question period. And the original kind of lineup of questions are ones that myself and Rachel came up with over the last couple of weeks after getting to know the panel. I will then open it up to the floor and to open up the floor to the participants here to ask questions of our panelists. And I guess further do a deep dive into what's meaningful for all of you that are in the room today. So agricultural innovation runs deep across the entire pan-provincial food system. As a province, we are working to find new ways to grow, process, and distribute food every day. Locally grown food has become the most desirable way to procure the ingredients that we put on our tables at every meal. From Sydney to Yarmouth and everywhere in between, agricultural entrepreneurs are continually thinking about food independence for both rural and city dwellers. While tech, data plays, and precision agriculture have become synonymous with innovation in this space, it is human ingenuity, collaboration, solutions-driven approaches, and an unwillingness to give up that have made our four panelists the revered innovators that they are today. This morning, we are fortunate to have this panel that represents a diverse richness of both innovative agriculture and aquaculture practices. These four individuals are passionate, goal-oriented, and devoted leaders who are committed to our terroir, terroir, and the sustainable practices that will support its longevity and growth. So, without further ado, I would like to start with Mike Lightfoot of Lightfoot and Wolfville Winery. And Mike will introduce himself and tell you a little bit about his story, which will give you a better understanding of why we have selected Mike, and we will go over to Kirk and Andrew and Patricia from there. Mike, over to you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out and caring about what we have to say, participating. I am Mike Lightfoot. I'm a co-owner of Lightfoot and Wolfville Vineyards. I'll take you back, way back. I am a 7th generation farmer. I've done the genealogy on my family, and it was a revelation some years ago, early on as a young farmer, that when everyone answered the census, they answered that they were a farmer, even though I knew that they were other things. One was a mason, my dad was a barber, but they were all answering the census as a farmer. And it was interesting when I looked into this, and as a young farmer trying to make it with a mixed small farm, doing natural farming way before it was trendy, 30-ish years ago, I didn't get it. I couldn't make money. I couldn't sustain the farm. And meanwhile, our acreage was shrinking. My grandmother had to sell a big portion of our farm off to sustain what little was left. And so it was this tragedy, this scorn over my family, how I was going to get this all back. Fast forward to the early 90s, I worked outside of the farm. I had beef cattle and apple orchards, and I tried everything under the moon to try to make money as a farmer. I still had to work off of the farm. All I wanted to do was a full-time farm. That was my goal, and support my family adequately, not just sustain myself. So, we had an opportunity to buy a poultry quota, which we did. My father and I bought it. I was 20 years old. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. And it gave us the economic return and stability in our family farm to be able to go back and acquire all the land that my family had lost, and buy back all the houses and all the frontage that got sold off of my farm from the 50s and 60s, all within one quick generation. So for that, it created a real great economic engine on our farm to be able to bring stability, to be able to pursue the things that we truly wanted to do. So I'll bring you up to somewhere in the 2000s when we started planting grapevines, about 10 years ago, actually. So we started planting grapevines. We actually were at a seminar about grapevines. We traveled, extensively throughout the wine regions of the world, and we always thought, Chianti, what's up with Chianti? I have a better view than that, and Nova Scotia is so beautiful, and we underappreciate it. And what's going on at home? We can do this at home. So we had the great fortune to sit down at a wine seminar, and when the music was stopped and we were asked to sit for our meal, I happened to sit at the Benjamin Bridge table. And unbeknownst to me, 2 or 3 days later, we had made a quick friendship with Benjamin Bridge. I was advised to plant 2 acres of vines, and the next spring I planted 6. And and that's charted the course for my quick ascent into the wine and grape business. So my wife and I planted vines 10 years ago. We then had the opportunity to take our farm fully organic right from the outset. We transitioned over the years from organics into biodynamics, and so all of our vineyards on the estate are certified organic and biodynamic, and now we're bringing that through to our production. So our first few wines last year that we produced were certified organic, and this coming year there'll be some of our products that meet the qualifications will be certified Demeter as well, biodynamic. So we needed a place to sell our wine, and we look at the Nova Scotia, Liquor Corporation, and albeit it's a great engine and they can move a lot of wine, they weren't able to tell our story. They weren't able to tell our family story, our history, which is so important to the fabric of the whole premise of the business. So we opted to build a larger retail facility on our property. We felt the property was conducive. We felt the industry was at the right time to be able to build a structure of its nature, and we built within the structure what we felt was all the levels of sustainability, not just a wine store with a cash register. We built in every single thing that we thought would help us achieve, making our payments and surviving ultimately and prospering. So we're happy to say it's been a great success. We've been open 3 months. Certainly, I'm overwhelmed with the uptake of the project. The Nova Scotia wine industry and culinary industry is really surging. There's all kinds of room for more investment in it. We need to see investment around us. And these guys will tell you I'm sure their story. But that's my piece. That's how we got to where we are today. Thanks.
Hi, Kirk Havercroft, CEO for Sustainable Blue. Sustainable Blue is a land-based Atlantic salmon farm in the village of Centre Burlington in Hants County. The origin of the project goes back approximately 25 years back to the UK. The original founders of the project saw two things. One was he predicted we could not continue taking fish out of the ocean at the rate that we were doing, and of course that's proven itself to be true. But secondly, that people were looking for aquaculture as a replacement for the product which eventually would not be available in the ocean. And he saw problems with the original forms of aquaculture which had just started to appear in Scotland, and that was sort of cage-based Atlantic salmon farming. Being a scientist, what he could see was that as an essentially open system, you could never protect the fish in your cages from whatever was there in the ocean, and B, whatever was there in your fish in the cages, you could never protect the environment from what you're releasing, so that there would be this constant transfer back and forth, and that ultimately the environment will be the net loser because of the concentration of fish in these open, unquarantined systems. So he could see problems originally with what you might call conventional forms of aquaculture. And being the scientist, what appealed to him was doing the one thing which everybody said then and even now could never be done, which was to develop a technology which would allow you to grow fish in saltwater on land with a treatment system that would ultimately bring you to what we would call a zero discharge model. So the idea was to develop a commercial fish farm which was essentially quarantined. We would have to develop a proprietary treatment system, but ultimately what we would have at the end of the day then is a model that you can take away from the ocean. So the vision was to grow saltwater fish away from the ocean so that your production facility can service or is situated close to the population that it services with the product. Of course, that was the vision 25 years ago, and everybody said then, look, it's a terrific idea in principle, but the technical challenges are huge, and they certainly are. Like, you take fish in a population in a fish tank, and essentially they change the water chemistry in a very dramatic way, and you have one opportunity, you have one pass through the treatment system to make sure that you take out all the pollutants, you add back what the fish are taking out, and you remove what the fish are putting in. And I don't think anybody appreciated the scale of the technical challenge that would actually... It's much easier to do that in freshwater for reasons of chemistry, but in saltwater, that was seen as the holy grail. And when I first met him about 20 years ago, he'd already been on this path for several years. And I said to him, why are you doing this? There are so many easier ways to make money out of aquaculture. Why are you doing this? And he said, simply because everybody's telling me it just can't be done. And I'm up for a challenge, right? And that was the individual that I met 25 years ago. So it's been an incredibly complex and difficult path, and we arrived in Nova Scotia 10 years ago to start our sort of commercialization phase. And we've still been learning things over the past 10 years that we thought we'd put to bed years ago, but that just really proves as to how technically challenging this happens to be. So anyway, where the project is now, we've completed that technical development phase, and we have recently invested $12 million in the site to expand our production, just to prove to others that and yes, to prove to people that might be investors that this now is commercially viable. And the interesting thing is, that our technology is driven by this one. I affectionately refer to him as a nerd. He is a geek. He's a chemist and a marine biologist and an engineer at the same time, which is great. So as true as it was to say 25 years ago that he went down a path on science development and technology which nobody else had understood at that particular time. If you wanted a land-based system, A, you could never close it completely because the technology challenge was too great. And B, there were just easier and quicker ways to get a return on your capital. Our view in the industry is here we are 25 years later, and that position is still true today. If you went out into the industry and said, I'm going to spend $10 million on a land-based saltwater fish farm, I'm going to look for companies who will build one for me, you'll get the same thing essentially that people were offering 25 years ago. Because the science and the chemistry particularly is still not very well understood. So we've been here for 25 years saying, look, we've got to get this development we've got to get this technology out of the development phase into commercialization because people will be coming onto our tails very quickly. And here we are 25 years later, and I think it's still true to say that nobody's on our tail as yet. And I understand why that's the case, because it is extremely difficult. Just as a final, I would say, what does it take to actually get a technology like this? It really takes a group of completely irrational people, because we often say to ourselves that this is so difficult that rational people would just give up. And I honestly believe that as long as you hold true to the vision that you have, as long as you always believe that the vision you have is correct, it doesn't matter what it takes. That's all the motivation you need to stay on that path, and that's been true for us. That's our story.
Good morning. I'm Andrew Rand, Rand's Land Farms. Pardon me? Oh, sorry. Am I too loud? We've got the unique privilege of being in every photo taken from the look-off just here. We're just centrally located as soon as you look down. Started in 1970, I believe, by my father and my grandfather. And it'll be here that I'll admit I wanted nothing to do with the place. I couldn't wait to leave. I figured music was in my future, or art, or anything but farming. So most of my framing of our history will be without me involved. But so my dad. It's really inspiring to hear the whole thing about seventh generation farmers. Dad basically started everything on his own from a wild piece of land just under the look-off there, and just had big aspirations in mind. So he, through the early years, I think he started tobacco and cauliflower, cabbage, whatever he could do to barely scrape by, like similar to your stories. And what's interesting to hear is he said in those days, in the late 70s, early 80s, local meant garbage, like it meant substandard. So quality produce was Ontario or Quebec. These people assumed that they had more money to invest in their infrastructures and their cold chain and their fertilizers and everything. So that was a pretty rough time. I wouldn't want to be back in that era. But roughly by the mid-'80s, he decided to start growing broccoli, and then we quickly specialized in broccoli. This is sort of just before the health attributes of broccoli were made well known. So we kind of caught that one just at the right time. And I will say he really wanted to always be ahead of any kind of a trend curve, and he always wanted to be at the high end of productivity and sort of post-harvest handling, things like that. So look towards the larger areas like Ontario and even California to see how sort of the larger farms were doing these kind of things. And we were lucky enough to have some people share some techniques with us that allowed us to kind of become the main producer of broccoli for the Atlantic area. So we quickly, our business became modeled around supplying the large retailers in Atlantic Canada with broccoli. And that was great until probably early 2000s. And just by a lot of advice from our accountants and some consultants that we work with, coincidentally, they're all at the same table right over there, diversification sort of flew its flag and said it would be a good time to think about diversifying, because with anything in farming, you've got, I don't know what the ratio is, 1 good year and 5 bad years or whatever. So the bad years it's no fun when you have just one item. So as fate would have it, a company called C.H. Robinson out of the U.S. Contracted us to try growing southern greens for them. Way too hot in the areas that are the major producer of these southern greens to grow it and get a consistent supply. We live in a landscape now that wants 12 month of the year supply for everything, so they just didn't like it when it's drying up. So we did that for about 4 years, and it got pretty big. At one point we were shipping 50, 60 trailer loads of these southern greens down to the U.S. Hard to believe the amount. For a vegetable like collard greens, I didn't meet one person that had ever tried them here locally, but I'm sure there is, but I mean, they can't get enough in the southern areas. It's amazing. But whether it's the current administration or rising freight costs, but that's slowed down. It's not really a success story this year, where it looked like sky was the limit, and we had people from Georgia and these other companies coming up and touring around the valley, and they just loved it, and it looked like it was going to be a really big happy ending romance of business. But anyway, we had learned to grow some of these other crops, one of them being kale. We all know about kale. So in it was last year, 2016, by this time, I came back to the farm in 2003, and after failing at my music endeavors, but lots of great experiences. So yeah, we started saying, well, we've learned how to grow kale. We want to still do something with it. In visiting some of these producers down in the U.S., we also noticed that the bagged salad, or anything bagged, anything convenience-based, is really, really big there. I'm totally in love with the small market situation too, and that's just not how our business is set up. So we basically, with the help of consultants, we realized, do what you're comfortable with, do what you're kind of already set up with. We already have a relationship with the retailers, and we have a little bit of experience with doing some value-added stuff. So we thought we'd dive into the bagged salad market. And so using some of these crops that we already knew how to grow and we were growing, be it kale, and we've already grown a bit of cabbage, broccoli, and we're adding in some red onion. So we're chopping these all up and putting them in a bagged salad along with a dressing and some pumpkin seeds and berries. So that was about a year ago we launched that, and that's a totally different thing with dealing with a raw commodity like broccoli or a little bit of cabbage we've dealt with too. The demand is already there. It's kind of a no-brainer. Once you get it into the retail chain, the orders just come. Once you get into value add, even though there's an opportunity to make more money and you have a little more control, you're building a brand, those orders just don't come. It's something you have to remind people and whap them over the head and put it in their face that, hey, you really want this. But we had a good reason why it was a worthy product, because when we're doing these demos, it's a great big giant wall of these bagged salads, and we found out that we are the only local or even the only Atlantic Canadian bagged salad that's all ready to go on that item. And what we've come to, I'm not positive that we're the only one, but we are one of the few that would take that right from the seed and grow the crop and then process it and then have it there within our family farm with our cute little story. So that's something that going forward we see ourselves as a processor and a grower, and with this story, and I'm not trying to undersell what we're doing, but nothing is ever better than the actual fresh product is right from the garden. But the consumer, there's a big percentage of consumers that are time-starved that are always going to go for these cut and washed items. So we kind of feel maybe that's our role, is to give those people the best quality processed bagged product that we can do. So We also invested in a dehydrator and kind of experimenting right now with looking at doing a shelf-stable product in the form of a powdered kale, even powdered broccoli, and done a lot of work with that and worked with a lot of extension people within the industry. I don't have a big success story with that yet, but I just thought it sounded cool, especially since Kirk's thing was so tech heavy. I had to get something in there. I felt so old school compared to his. But anyway, so that's something that, wow, pretty quickly you realize people that are marketing to places like China and everything, there's a real big interest for anything that's shelf stable from Nova Scotia to be exported out of here. Currently, we're just exporting to Atlantic Canada with our bag salad. I think Ted had introduced me last week as saying exporting our salads all over the world, and I thought, I better say something. I better correct him. No, I'm going to correct him. But so it's just Atlantic Canada. I will say that another neat thing as a final is in the past few years we've really noticed that Nova Scotia is starting to become known as having an amazing fall, and that's pretty obvious right now. There's other times this time of the year it's getting pretty cold, but still some of our crops were able to grow another 2 or 3 weeks after Quebec and Ontario and Maine all stop. So we're sort of planting accordingly for that, and we've been we can barely keep up with the work with exporting loads of mostly broccoli to Quebec and Boston and Ontario, and it's no longer, the term dumping ground used to be used. Basically, you can either plow it under or sell it to Boston, and it's just kind of a little bit better than break even, but it's not the case anymore. We're looking at good returns, and it's that because of our environmental situation here and the relationship building. So it's something there's no quick buck there. It just happens over time. So anyway, that's
thanks,
that's
Andrew. Really appreciate that.
Good morning. My name's Patricia. It's nice to see so many familiar faces out there. I come from Greenwich, actually. I get to view it right now, the family farm in Greenwich. And a bunch of years ago, I met this great guy named Josh at the Agricultural College. And I remember Andrew and his artistic talent at the Agricultural College playing at many talent shows. And I thought you were very successful in your art career.
It was a small venue, easy crowd.
Josh and I met, and I too was not really planning to return to agriculture. It wasn't sort of like a conscious thought, but he grew up knowing he was a farmer. And a bunch of years into our relationship, we decided that it would make sense to move back to the Annapolis Valley so our kids could be close to their grandparents and we could farm. And I decided to put my education hat on and my passion for the environment hat on and join Josh in envisioning our farming career together. So that's sort of how we got into farming. We bought a farm over in Port Williams on Kennard Street, and then a few years later we bought a farm on Church Street. And when we bought the farm on Church Street, that is when we were confronted with some new challenges. The first farm that we purchased, we bought to grow large-scale, a large amount of volume of vegetables to go into a wholesale market, and also to go to my family farm, Noggins Corner Farms, vegetable market. And when we bought the second farm, the vision was, and the business plan was, to do the exact same thing with organic vegetables, because I studied in the environment, and it was really important to me to be changing the system of agriculture that I was participating in. Well, after the first year, I realized that was probably maybe a really bad idea, or at least if I continued thinking that it was a good idea, we were not going to make any mortgage payments. And so in that first year, thankfully, our first farm, which we called Josh's farm at the time, it was Trisha's farm and Josh's farm. Josh's farm, bailed us out that first year of having to make our mortgage payment. We opted for the annual payment, which really helped on a monthly basis, but then when November came, it was kind of panic attack time. At any rate, we made the payment, and we very quickly looked around us to see what was going on and what really worked in terms of who we were and what we were trying to accomplish. And we learned about something called community shared agriculture. Josh was doing a management course, and on that management module, there was another farmer there from Toronto who ran a community shared agriculture farm. And then we also learned of this of a workshop in Ontario that I went to where there were about 300 people who were running organic, not necessarily organic, but community shared agriculture farms. And so we dove right into this world of values and growing food and community, and it really worked for me in my heart and what I wanted to be able to bring forward to the community around food. And so that was sort of the first thing that happened that a lot of people said was really innovative. I didn't really see it as innovative. I saw it very much as survival, and very much of what was in my heart of what I wanted to be able to share. And so that worked really well. People, many of you actually, have been very supportive of what we've been doing over the years to build our organic farm and to be able to build our CSA and to do that, with those values. Well, a few years ago, many years, I'd sit at tables in agriculture, and many people in this room have also maybe done that and been at those tables, and you'll hear things like, we need farmers to innovate. We need farmers to innovate. You need to come up with the ideas. Bring us the ideas. We can help support you. Government can support you if you bring the ideas. But they weren't really bringing ideas. So it was sort of up to us to bring the ideas. And I'm just like, I don't have time for any ideas. My head is so full. We're just trying to survive. Can't you give me an idea and then I can employ the idea? So that was happening in my head. And I was walking along the farm one day with a group of people. One of those people was Richard Donald, and I was looking at on our property we have a whole bunch of this plant. I'm not sure if any of you know what this is. Well, if you ever come to visit us at 1736 Church Street, please beware. There's a lot of this plant on our property, and it's called stinging nettle. So it was everywhere. The farmer before us, Neil, had planted it as part of the biodynamic agriculture system that he had put in place on the farm, and stinging nettle was all over our property, and it still is. So if you ever need any, come to us. Don't buy it, don't plant it, just come to the farm and get some. But I was trying to figure out what could we do with this nettle. There must be some gift in this nettle that I'm not seeing. Is it a nutraceutical? Is it like a fertilizer for plants that we could sell to other farmers? What is it? And I learned that nettle can be used to process to make fiber for clothing. And I was sort of like, oh, that's interesting. And so I started connecting with this group of people at the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design, and one thing led to another, and I'm learning about flax and its ability to make clothes. And then I'm like, wait, we could not only raise animals and grow vegetables and grow fruit, but we could also grow fiber so that people can wear clothes, and we can make clothes in the Annapolis Valley. And so that's been the journey that I've been on, taking that plant and working hard to try to take that plant and turn it into something like this, or something like this, or a shirt like this, or a pair of socks, or bed sheets, or towels, all of the things that we use in our everyday lives. And it's not something that is, for our region. Yes, we raise animals for wool products and alpaca for other, for yarn products that can be woven or can be knit. But we have a lot of work to do around making it as fine enough to replace or to compare to what you are all wearing right now. But we can make what you are all wearing right now. We just need a bunch of equipment, and we need a bunch of skills, and we need a bunch of will. So that's really what we're up to. We've designed a line of machinery to be able to, on a small scale, process bast fibers, which includes hemp, nettles, and flax, into long line, really nice long strands of fiber that can be then spun and woven into fine garments.
Okay. I think I speak for the entire room when I say we are inspired to be amongst this catalytic panel. It's amazing to hear your stories. Before we go on to the questions, and I just want to get a sense of who's out in the room. So I recognize some faces from post-secondary and Blueberries, Randy, and chefs, and can we get everybody to raise their hand who's in agriculture, processing, producing, just to get a better sense of. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're going to move on to the question period, and I'd like to start with Kirk. And for the panel, we talked about this before, but if you feel like you want to piggyback on something that one of the members is saying or contribute to that question, please do so. So Kirk, how do you create a working culture of innovation? And what inclusive methods do you use to empower your team?
Well, I'd say we got this wrong many, many times before we actually finally got it right. And for us, the answer was we had to look very carefully at what it is that motivates people and the connections between their efforts at the farm and the outcome of those efforts. So what we do is, it is unique. We're operating systems which we develop, you can't find anywhere else. If you did an aquaculture degree somewhere, that's of no use to me whatsoever. The question is, can you operate equipment safely and efficiently and productively? When we looked at you looked at the sort of supervisors, people with responsibility, we looked carefully at the structure of that responsibility, and we had two choices. We could sort of take a lateral responsibility, which is maybe to say, water quality for us in the farm is really important, so I'm going to make you responsible for water quality across all of the buildings. That's what you do, and if there's ever a problem with water quality, I'm coming to you. And we thought that was to find these sort of functional responsibilities across the site was the way to deal with that. And then what you'd find is you'd have a water quality issue, you go and talk to the guy and say, water quality isn't great in this building, what's going on? And he would say, look, all of my switches are up, right? Everything I'm supposed to do, I did, but the guys in the building who were feeding fish, they calculated the feed incorrectly, we overfed, it's jammed the system, so not really my fault. And it was difficult to manage that process because there was this, not that we're a blame culture at all, but you have to get to the cause of the problem. Everybody was like this, it's not me, it's him. And so we looked, and it was difficult to manage, and the people themselves that had these responsibilities, they were finding it frustrating because, hey, I've worked hard today, I've done everything you asked me to do, and still it's not the outcome that you wanted me to produce. So we took it a different way, and we said we're going to stop this lateral level of responsibility, and I don't know if you'd call it vertical, but essentially what we said is, right, we have 3 production buildings. You are responsible for everything in this building. Water quality, feeding rates, growth performance, counting fish, health and safety. So I want to come to this building and see just a really well-maintained, operated, efficient, clean system, looks professional. I could bring tour groups in here every single day. And you have to be careful with that because some people respond to that kind of responsibility and others like to hide, right? And there's nothing wrong necessarily with somebody that likes to hide, it's just you can't pick them for that kind of job. But in doing that, we had enough people that said, that is the kind of responsibility I want. So we put people in key positions in those buildings. And so it reconnected their effort that they put in with the outcome of that effort. And suddenly we had buildings which were, this guy would come to me and say, hey, I'm kind of 9 out of 10 in here, but here are my issues. I'm trying to get to 10 out of 10. Here's what I'm going to do. And suddenly there was pride there. And there was, people feeling I am completely in control of this environment that I've been given. And that for us, from a management point of view, was empowering because a lot of what we do there is proprietary. You're buying into a process and a technology that, in my view, is world-leading. You won't find it anywhere else in the world. And you've just given that to an individual and trusted that person with the responsibility of running that, knowing very well they're doing something that nobody else in the world is doing right now. So for us, it was a way of, the original founders, our vision was how unique this is. And this for us was a way of sharing that vision with the people who work for us and get some pride out of, I understand this, I get this, I can manage this, and it made a big difference for us.
Great, thank you. Mike, you've been quiet for a while, so I think it's your turn to step up. How do you manage to stay positive and continue to be creative with innovative proposals and ideas when they always seem to be met with a no?
Next question. I was raised, it's kind of easy in a sense because I was raised in a household that would scold me for saying can't. Can't was a forbidden word in my home. And I learned very early on through a series of great negotiations as a child that no was just 2 letters of the word negotiate. So very early on, I never accepted no's. I wasn't very good at that. I didn't like it. And so when people oppose your what you feel is your innovative ideas, it just makes me more passionate. I just become more passionate. I become a better salesperson. I go home at night and figure out, okay, why am I not getting through to that person? Why can't I sell this idea to that person? And I try different angles, and I'm told from the bankers I'm pretty good at it. But I guess, when one door closes, it sounds cliche, another window opens, and I always look for, when there's a no, I always say, I refuse to believe that. I find another way around the problem. So I just keep pushing forward. I just try to, it's in me. I make it kind of a sport. I kind of enjoy, cracking down those barriers and keeping positivity, high. If I haven't convince someone that my idea is good, then I haven't done my job. So I have to go back and do a better job at selling the idea to somebody. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think sometimes if you keep your teams wearing those rose-colored glasses, then they're more apt to be solutions-driven than they are to present a no, or always have a solution when a no comes out first.
It's created a bit of a culture of competition now. So what I see within our ever-expanding employment base, I see that others now are rising to try to problem solve and to try to come forward and find innovative ideas of solutions to problems that we commonly have. So it's really interesting to watch everyone else now try to compete to fix things.
Great. I'd be asked to move over here. Okay, Patricia, what are some of your best examples of innovative ideas that have increased productivity?
Oh, gee, I don't know. Well, certainly launching the CSA increased our certified organic acreage substantially. And in doing so, we were able to secure, a much larger team of people that work with us. So our farm has really grown a lot and shifted a lot over the years. And so that's something our productivity has gotten bigger and bigger because of the way in which we are connecting with the marketplace. So I'd say that there's not so many innovative ideas, I don't think, sort of on the ground necessarily. This past year, that I can think of right in this moment, in this past year, we did a session on the lean farm concept, so looking at the lean model and how it can apply on a farm. And we've implemented a bunch of those strategies and find it's so fascinating, the lean concept, when you look at how people move around a room. Like on our farm, we have many crops and many products on our price list. And so often we'll be in a situation where we have maybe 1 case of parsley that we needed to go harvest. So when you think, there's a lot of inefficiencies in a small farm operation where you have a whole lot of products that you're trying to get packaged, but it's one-offs of things. It's not like a pallet load. And years ago, that's what we focused on. We focused on a large acreage of sweet corn, and we get the machine, get everybody on the machine, 10 people working on the corn harvesting machine, and we harvest 4 or 5 pallet tractor trailer loads of corn. And so to shift into this, smaller scale model, but yet small scale still big, more products, but not that same efficiency, I'd say that efficiency on our farm has, reduced in some ways instead of increased because of that change in the scale. So trying to, keep our revenue in the same place, but shifting that model from 1 or 2 or 3 big things to many other things. So not a really great answer to the question, but
Well, it is, and I think that you also have a new proprietary or piece of equipment that you're building as well that is going to increase some productivity, is right?
Well,
Am I letting the cat out of the bag, or is
the machinery that we've designed. So when we decided we wanted to grow clothes, then we had to figure out how do you go from the plant to the clothes, and there's a whole lot of steps. And so one of those steps is there's actually 6 steps that you can do by hand or you can do with machines. And so we have designed these small scale machines to do that mechanically. Up until now, we've been doing that by hand, and now we are able to do it mechanically. And that has definitely increased, is actually in this moment right now while we're here, Josh and Corey are moving the machines to a new facility where we'll be able to set them all up and start processing both 2015 and 2016 flax. And 17. There's like 3 years worth of a crop we've been growing we still haven't gotten harvested or processed. So we'll now be able to get that processed, and we will then have fiber to go into the mill in Greenwich to make yarn. So those machines will make a tremendous difference in our ability to get fiber ready for yarn.
I think what's so interesting about that machine too is what you alluded to at the wineries is that other farms around the globe are going to benefit from your technology too. So I think that really speaks to what we're doing here today and what we're talking about here today.
Yeah,
it's a real collaborative piece.
Yeah, we're heading to the Netherlands next week actually to be meeting up with people to sell our machines to, and we're selling a set of machines to France. So that's going to be exported. I really hope in the week of November 20th.
Oh, the mortgage time.
But having never been a part of manufacturing machines before, it's just, I hope that paint shop gets it done on time. I'm sure they will.
All right, thank you. Andrew, we talked, everybody's talked a little bit about human ingenuity and how that aligns with innovation, and I referenced it when I first started here. What do you do to kind of keep the iron hot? What do you do to keep, how do you bottle it? How do you keep those ideas fresh?
Well, we're kind of in a neat little transitionary time in our value add sector where we're doing our bagged salads and some of the other items where some of our key people have retired, and these key people were they're invaluable but very, very resistant to change. And so as they kind of retired, we sort of had to regroup with the people that we had left there. And again, it sounds so cliche, but we did a lot of the empowering and a lot of what Kirk was talking about with seeing who would respond more to being accountable for certain things, but mostly cultivating an environment of listening and encouraging ideas. And I think it's even the people that hardly said boo are coming up with different little ideas, right down to where like pallet flow, finished product flow should go, right down to maybe a stainless steel table, production table located in a different way would really help things out. And quite often they've all been great ideas, things people have stewed on. And not to knock the older generation, but the amount of times I've heard the things like when problems happen, I'm going to look for an ass to kick, and I'm going to kick it hard. That worked back in the '70s, but it's not. It doesn't really gel now. So I don't know if that's kind of what you're talking about, but just really, again, it sounds cliche, but just look at, and it doesn't always mean a pay increase either. It's just to be listened to and encourage an idea, and definitely when the idea is good, reward it, and if there is a problem. Wow, it's hard to do, but try not to pounce and punish. But say, okay, here's the worst case scenario. Let's work our way out of that. And anyway, that's what I really see. That's
great. I mean, leadership is about guiding that with your ear.
Yeah.
And listening.
Getting rid of that standard hierarchy too, but just more of a team atmosphere.
All colleagues. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a lot more questions, but I thought this would be a good opportunity to open it up to the room. I don't want to put everyone on the spot. It's a big group. You don't have to put up a hand. I can keep going with my questions. But if you have a question that you'd like to ask of the panel right now, put put up your hand. If you want to think about it for a couple more minutes, I can keep asking some more questions. Does anybody have something now that they'd like to ask? Okay, great. If you want to just stand up and tell us who you are and fire away.
Hi, my name's Gary Morton with Skew Food. And the question I'd like to ask is, let's take money off the table because there's never enough money to support innovation and those kind of things. But what would be some of the resources that would help you advance innovations within your business faster, better, quicker? Maybe you can share some of those ideas with us.
Well, we have partnered with provincial governments on creating innovations, either by way of through inventions or accessing innovations that were not previously found in the province or even in the area. And in some instances, those are innovations that we could access, whether it be equipment or consultancy or what have you, and then adapting it and making it more specific to what our needs are. Is that kind of where you're going? Provincial government does, have through agriculture a few streams to promote innovation. So I guess that's been one way that we've helped ourselves gain it.
I'd just like to hear from everybody.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say the biggest, other than capital, the biggest resource available to us is staff. I mean, we foster a culture, or we try to, of, everyday guys, you are, I hate using buzzwords, but somebody once gave me the intrapreneur word, which means every day I want you to look at opportunities for improving what we do. Don't just assume that we have the best solution here. So we stimulate that, we encourage it. Once a month we have a working meeting on design and technology development. People are encouraged to bring the most radical ideas that they can possibly bring to the table. And 95% of them get shot down as, yeah, interesting, but we're not doing that. But occasionally, you get, and it starts for us, it all starts with observation, right? We encourage our team to be incredibly observant about the fish in the tanks, the fish in the system, and how the system behaves, and hey, I did this and look what happened. Make notes of that, record it, bring it to the meeting. And sometimes some of those ideas have stimulated design changes, very fundamental design changes, and we try to reward the staff for doing that. So, A, it's good for us, B, it also makes your staff feel really connected to the process. So for us, staff would definitely be the biggest resource.
Andrew or Patricia, do you want to take a run at that one?
Well,
No, go ahead.
So without money, what would be the resource? And for me, that would be, it's really hard when we're trying to export these machines. It's been incredibly difficult to find someone who can help us navigate the process of going from here we are with this idea to, how do we get it out to the world? And what I mean by really hard is that we would call lots of different offices, even with exporting seeds. So lots of people in North America want to be able to grow small plots of flax to be able to grow their own clothes. And the varieties we don't grow here in Canada. They're in Belgium and France. And so we imported seeds, but then we want to resell seeds. So even to find the right person in the government department to talk to about how do we export seeds in a way that's just like easy. I mean, it's taken hours of staff time to be able to find the ways to navigate our government systems to be able to do these things. So years ago, when people in a room were talking about the red tape we have to go through, I had no idea what they were talking about. I was like, what are you talking about, red tape? Like, I don't see any red tape. Well, I understand what they mean by red tape, and it's not a negative. It's just, it seems as though it's not anyone's responsibility to help. Nova Scotia Business Inc. We have ended up connecting with, and there's one woman that works there, Jessica, who has been, I'm sure there's many other people that work there that have been fantastic, but Jessica in particular, for what we're trying to accomplish, has been amazing. And once once the light bulb went off in that connection, it's been great, but it took a long time to find that. So I would say the resources that are actually really knowledgeable resources on how to go from here to here. And I'd also say for me personally, and that one of the biggest challenges that I've had in this journey of innovation is my ability to manage. So having access, I know many years ago we were talking about having managed libraries, business owner libraries, and resource banks and things like that. Well, right now I really need that, but I also haven't figured out how to find the time to access it if it still exists. Like, I don't even know if it still exists. Does it still exist? I don't think so. And back then I thought this is a great idea, but I didn't need it as much as I need it now. So management support, like just being able to figure out how to do these things, and then support getting like from point A to point B. Definitely would be incredibly helpful if they're, especially without money. And then, yeah, that's it. That's enough.
I just wanted to say too, quickly, the whole idea of openness amongst businesses that are doing kind of like-minded things, and in terms of our kale powder project, the guys from Van Dyke's share with me some of their ideas about microwave drying. John Lohr's boys, or Pharma John Herbs, have been open to talking to us about maybe marketing together. They have little kiosks, and I know Howard from Valley Flax Flour has given me lots of advice on hammer milling. And the culture in decades past has been, keep it secret. My gosh, don't tell anybody what you're doing. But I think when you can start to be a bit open, and maybe not say, okay, now I'm going to do flax flour myself and run them out of the market. That's certainly not the right way. But I mean, if we can all find a way to, because there's a lot of challenges here. So if we can find a way to kind of have some synergy to the way we're marketing together, and consultants like yourself being able to, you don't want to share everything that everybody else is doing, but it's great when there's certain things it's okay to share, and knowing how to connect other people. Then we can be a little more effective, I think. And for us, that's
really good point. Collaboration is
because sometimes when
such a great
you're going
economic driver.
You're reading through a website of how to apply for a certain program, you can get glossed over quickly. But when you're talking to a producer that's done it and or is partway through it, sometimes it hits home a lot quicker. You can.
Thanks, Andrew. I know there's another question over here.
Sort of the same idea, but I was interested in capital itself. What's the state of access to capital for the agriculture industry in Nova Scotia right now? Is it difficult, easy, or is there provincial money? And I'm kind of interested, are there kind of angel investors in the maritime market? Is that an access to capital right now? So just general.
I can actually take a small run at that one. I know that there is a group of angel investors in Nova Scotia that are willing to hear any pitch, and they're fairly inclusive and open about giving access to individuals if it's like yourself. The other thing is, I know that ACOA wasn't mentioned, but it's a very, very good resource for seed money. And there's no personal guarantees, which some are laughing in the room about personal guarantees on it, but it's essentially what I've been told starting a business is take as much free money as you possibly can. Yes, it is supposed to be repayable, but it's interest free, and it gives you a good opportunity to get yourself started, and it gives you another opportunity to branch out and meet those other resources that will help you along the way. Mike, do you want to add to?
Well, having just gone through a major financial deal, you've got to choose your partners carefully. I think we chose one large partner. We were advised not to split up and have several investors. It's our investment alone. We're lucky because we have a bit of an equity engine where I got started farming young, so there was lots of equity on my farm, which was well recognized. And for us, we banked through the province in our latest endeavor. But agriculture has lots of places to go. There's lots of places to go. There's a few programs for young farmers to encourage young farmers to get in.
Growing Forward, I think,
Growing Forward, yeah. And I'm not quite familiar with maybe some of the other ones. Tricia maybe, but Yeah, so you have to shop around. There are. I'm not aware of angel investors myself. I have heard of it, but I fortunately didn't need to go there. But
Yeah, and there's the Center for Entrepreneurship. There's a whole lot of outlets and channels that you can tap to get yourself started.
Ted, do you mind if I have found this really difficult. So it kind of goes along the lines of like having experience in this kind of in moving our business in this sort of way. So how do you have investors and what? So for me, I've worked in an environment where it's sweat equity. So your whole life you work really hard, and then at the end you hope that there's something there. And so the idea of how do people come in to an ownership structure with equity, and then how do they participate in decision making or not when they have equity? And so for me, it's been like when people talk about paradigm shifts, like this whole idea of investors to me is really hard to figure out how to just think about it, because it's not something that I have known or that I understand. And so I would really like to have investors in our machine company, because we need investors in our machine company. We need money. It's really challenging to do research and design to design these small scale machines. But any smart investor will ask, okay, well, who's going to buy these machines? Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? How fast are they going to, process the material? Are they going to process the material fast enough that you're going to be able to get a return on the material? And I don't have any of those answers because we're doing R&D in machines that don't exist. And so it's really difficult to be able to position ourselves, or I haven't found the way to position ourselves that's beyond, that has the details that people who don't want to take too much risk want to hear. So I don't have those answers. So it's really been tricky and interesting to navigate that. And now that we have the machines, now we have some of those answers, and so now we can put together a different offer to people now that we've got more of that information. But certainly it has felt very isolating with the risk that we're taking, and we have had, because we have done this equity thing on our own farm for since 2004 when we bought it. Now we have value in that land, and that's how we're financing doing this, with the support of a couple of other people. But then the cash flow challenge and the financing challenge is like almost debilitating, but yet I can see like it's there. We're there. We're going to get there. And so it's the same as what Mike was saying, like, is that going to be what stops us? Is like the money going to be what stops us, or are we going to just keep going? And once we get these machines finished and people start to see what's possible, then it will all unfold.
My brief contribution to that would be, I don't know about farming capital, but what I would say is Sustainable Blue has done very well applying for funds from ACOA, and here's just an insider's tip for you is, if you time your application to about the end of January every year, ACOA are usually panicking that they won't spend all of their money. So that is the perfect time to get your application in. And we've had a number of calls over the past few years saying, you guys are you in the market for building anything? No, I don't think so. Are you sure? Could you have a really good look at that? And I'm like, well, the problem is every time we build something, like, you finance part of it, and I've got to find the money for the other part of it. Yeah, could you go and find the money? Because we've had those conversations. So end of January is the perfect time to get an ACOA application in. And in terms of the others, on the equity side, to me, in broad terms, there are two types of equity. You've got the what I call the venture capital. I'm sorry. This is the real, just hard, I just want a return, right? I'm interested in the story, it's all very compelling, and it's, I just want the return. We kind of dipped our toe in the water with that a few years ago, and we weren't ready at that time. We will be ready at some point, but not at that time. Then there's the other kind of equity, private equity, which is on the benevolent side, and that's what we have been thriving on, is that it's investors who know that we will deliver a return, but they also understand the uncertainty of the phase that the project's in. And we've had some incredibly supportive shareholders. My last comment on that would be, do not attempt to raise capital, whether it's debt or equity, without having a strategic plan and a financial plan. That is more important than hitting the plan, right? But you cannot go and raise money on the strength of, I'm really not sure how we're going to perform over the next few years. Can I have some money? Our shareholders are very, very receptive to, here was the plan last year, here's where we deviated, here are the reasons why, here's what we've done to solve it, and here's the plan for next year. That gets a lot of backing. So, those would be my points on it.
Great. We've got another question over here.
Good morning. Hi. No disrespect, Michael, but what's fascinating to me, two things, is that there hasn't been one mention of digital. This is all about kind of analog and craft and age-old feet on the ground and a resurgence in the real values of agriculture. And I say no disrespect, Michael, because I mean we all are seduced by wine or craft brew or ciders, and it's an industry, a very valuable industry. Obviously, Nova Scotians are benefiting from it and celebrating it, and it's just so encouraging to see nutritional-based agriculture matching the innovative intellectual property element, and I'm not quite sure how that shift is going to happen that allows us to have CBC information warning in the middle of the fields or in the middle of a salmon producing facility. But if there's a way to elevate those industries so that they're more seductive, and the challenge is how they're so fascinating, these stories of taking leaves and creating fabric and clothing. Those are really seductive stories told in the right way. So, and of course, Devour is all about that, which is really wonderful. So, I guess it's just. How does that shift? How do we perpetuate that shift from the red tape, bureaucratic and financial end, so that people are investing, want to invest in that, rather than sort of
well, I think
easy
this.
seduction?
Yeah. So I think Kurt just spoke to it a little bit. I think there's a lot of investment, benevolent. There's a lot of investment in social enterprise. There's a lot of feel-good stories. Does someone want to touch on that, Patricia?
I do. How many people in this room know about FarmWorks? Okay. So for those of you who don't know, and I won't talk too much about it, but it does speak to some of the real active ways that people can invest their money and then have direct action within small and large operations that are working really hard towards fulfilling their vision. So after the session's over, I really encourage you to speak with Linda, and she'll have some information. But it's definitely a solution, it's a solution that we know is there in terms of financing and supporting the farm and/or the enterprises, the agri-enterprises, even things that are not farms but that are restaurants that are that hold the values, share the values, is what they lend to. And I think that. My observation is things happen in these steps, and so we're just sort of like moving along. And so, we have CBC at Lightfoot and Woelfel this morning, and that's like unbelievable. I did not have any idea so many people went to CBC in person in the morning. Like, it was full in there, and so next, that's happened, and that's been a really great experience. And so then next we can expand into it being in other places. And so once it happens, then we can start envisioning how it can happen differently the next time to include, other innovations, other small businesses or large businesses, and celebrate something different. So I think it's like, Michael and Leah had this innovative idea to have this film festival, and then things start to happen, and here we are now at Wayfarers, and then you bring that up, and it's like, you're right, there's so many other places that are interesting and special and unique to share the story of what's possible here, and they'll come.
Yeah, no offense taken, of course. we grow pigs in the woods. We sell our pork products through our pizzas. It just happens to be at our winery. You know, we collaborate with all of these folks. We buy their products and sell them through the winery. They're going to have dinners with our wine. It's all about a community, and in my opinion, we're a very small cog of the community, albeit a sexy cog, but a small one. But here we are at Wayfarers, you know, in a brewery, and we're talking about wine and salmon and vegetables and everything and flax. So yeah, it's a community. It's in the spirit of togetherness. We're all going to get there together, in my opinion. So I think it will move around, and I think it will be interesting to see how it all plays out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm the board chair at Taste of Nova Scotia, and we represent 200 members that are actively looking to collaborate all the time, from producer processors to restaurants. And, you know, the things that are sexy draw the most attention. I mean, kombucha, that's pretty sexy right now. The way that the kombucha industry of Nova Scotia is growing so rapidly is because the bartenders at the restaurants and the mixologists are embracing kombucha as one of their major ingredients. You know, we can sell it at retail, we can sell it at you know, in national programs, but the way that we have success is just, you know, to piggyback on what Mike said, is that, you know, the catalyst for bringing people here right now seems to be the number one is alcohol. And let's let the alcohol providers grab and gravitate to the other suppliers around and start to showcase and highlight them on their menus and celebrate their products in a way that we haven't before. Any other questions from the audience? Randy?
Yeah.
You want to just use the mic or just your power?
Just in an evolving retail landscape, can you comment on your philosophy or how you go to market? Because I mean, innovation and products is all fantastic, but at the end of the day, someone's part of cold hard cash to make the circle work. So just you comment on your go-to-market philosophy.
Here's an example of something we got completely wrong to start with. So we're not retail, so we don't get paid at point of sale. So when we first had product available going to market, we said we should just cut out the wholesale. Cut out the middleman. We're going to go straight to individual restaurants, and we get a better margin. We get a relationship with the head chef, and we get direct feedback. What a brilliant idea. And we ended up with 40 individual clients who wouldn't pay us on time. And, you know, we'd say to them, we're harvesting on Monday. We need your order by Friday afternoon. And Monday, when we're putting all the nets away, you get your client saying, I forgot to order, but I need 60 pounds of fish. And we're saying, I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. Well, I've got to have it, right? For us, there was a steep learning curve on that. And it's completely reshaped our view of how we do what we do and how we get our product into the marketplace. Not only did we do that, we also owned our own processing facility to process fish, another huge mistake in our view, because we were losing track of what is it that we do. We grow fish. That's what we do. We're not marketing people. We're not salespeople. We're certainly not processors, and we couldn't get out of that fast enough. So for us, I don't know, these guys are in a different position than me because they get, I assume they get paid to some extent retail at point of sale, which would have taken some of our problems away. Right now, we've selected one distributor in Halifax called Aficionado. It's a great fit for us because 100% of the product that goes through their facility is sustainably produced or responsibly produced or ethically sourced. So our product slides in there particularly well. They do all of our processing, they do all of our sales and all of our distribution. I have one client who happens to pay me relatively well, who shares all the ethics and the kinds of responsibility that we share in production. So that is our model. Our model is to totally simplify and focus on what we're good at, which is growing fish. And I do provide in-field support for Aficionado. We go to the Boston Seafood Show, but I am not the one setting up supplies with individual restaurants. And yeah, we couldn't get out of that fast enough. So.
Our business is totally pretty much to the retail giants, and so our world is category managers and item buyers and these other types of things. And so you've got to really understanding the customer. It's pretty obvious stuff, but they need large order fills, and so you just have to be ready to do the quantity that you know that they need that's realistic to them, but the quality has to come as an obvious given as well. And it's almost like the local component is right after that, but there's no way I could lead with, hey, it's local, but the quality is just a slightly, I've heard that word, but it's just slightly subpar, but it's local, and that would just be a suicide thing in our environment. But learning, and I heard Pete Luckett say before, bring your customer solutions and not problems. So if there is an issue, you've got the solution right there, and because there's always going to be issues. But and I've found it's very much a people thing and a relationship thing, and in a non-sleazy way, schmoozing or warming them up, but not in a used car salesman way. But it's just you literally have to seem gracious to be having that book of business with this person, but in a legitimate way. There's no room for the old 80s style wheeling and dealing in the world that we're in right now anyway. And there's a high turnover. There's always new people in these roles. So, you get that, that bouquet of flowers, so to speak, for the next guy that's there, or girl. So.
Okay.
One more question from you, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, great. I've got so many questions here, I'm not sure how to get it down to one. I think we talked a lot about, some of the questions that I had were about community and about embracing collaboration, respecting thy neighbor, working with them to support the community. How about everyone just gives a final tip? How about you can talk about a tip on breaking into the export market. You can give a tip on
I'll give a tip.
anything on raising money, whatever.
There's a few people in the room who, when I look out, I know are innovators and who have ideas and have passion and are wanting to see their ideas evolve and become successful. And then probably all of you have those, even if maybe you park them way back in the back of your mind somewhere to carry on with other things that you're doing. And my tip is to hang on to that and to don't give up, and to believe that your idea and what you're trying to accomplish is going to work, and it's going to work really well. Because most people who share their ideas out loud have thought a lot about them before they share them out loud, and they're usually always really fantastic. And so the hanging on and being stubborn and not letting a letter that comes from the government that says your idea is not innovative stop you in any way, shape, or form. Keep going and believe in yourself, and you will be able to realize your goal and your vision. So that's my tip.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's a barrier that is privacy, or that is, your concerns of someone taking your idea. And what I've learned is that just get it out, because the people that are around you, that you've surrounded yourself with, just want to help you get your idea to market, or help you, meet with the right people. They're not, if they likely would have thought of your idea before too, and, would have bounced it off you. So I think it's again, it comes back to that collaborative piece. Mm-hmm. Andrew?
I just had a kind of a radical idea when the lady mentioned digital, and then we have the guys from Wild Loop in here. I remember taking a truck ride somewhere with a professor from Dalhousie, and he had mentioned something about, he was really new agey, that Nova Scotia was almost in the dead center of Pangea when supposedly the continents were all together. And then he went on to say how interesting it is that the history of this place, it was a volcano, and the glacier moved through, and then it formed, then Cape split, and the Five Islands and Cape Blomidon formed, and that was just so striking that the indigenous culture here looked at it and said, this is where a god lives here. And wouldn't it be neat to see that all in a time-lapse video and then play it at Devour? Anyway, that would really help us market what's unique about this area. Anyway, that's my new.
That's you're channeling your artsy musician side.
Right. I think having people to talk to, whether it's consultants like Gary or people like Sean from NSBI, and also Hort, Nova Scotia, people at Perennia. When you go on the Perennia website, you can see all the different people that specialize in perhaps the avenue that you're looking to get into. And I think there's a lot of people now that are trying to demystify all the different programs and the different challenges and the science and the business end of things. And I think there are people there that are willing to help guide you through what it is you're trying to do. It's just know who to ask, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a tip, and I also have an offer, which just occurred to me actually during the course of the conversation. But my tip would be innovation is great, it's important, it stimulates business. Focus on innovation, but never take your eye off quality, because nobody will buy your product just because it's innovative if the quality isn't there. And so as much as you do focus on innovation, you must have a positive program that focuses on quality as well. My offer would be, just as I think it fits the discussion, is we recently at Sustainable Blue have been talking about a very valuable potential resource that we have that we're trying to exploit right now, and it just occurs to me that my partners here might be able to be part of that process. So our very valuable resource is poop, fish poop. We have just loads and loads of fish. I don't know if it fits the definition of sexy that we were talking about earlier, but we would like to develop a commercial product as a fertilizer out of our fish poop. The only problem with it right now is that it's got salt in it because it's a saltwater fish farm. We could desalinate that, but what we'd be looking for are opportunities to trial that with agriculture partners, just to see if there's is there anything there. Could we have a valuable byproduct? Would it work for you? And if so, how would you receive it, and how much could you pay for that kind of thing? So a tip and an offer, just in case we can talk afterwards and figure out how to make poop sexy.
It's not going to go in the pre-made salad bag, I can tell you that right now. I don't know if we can weave with it. I'm thinking. Wow, this has been great. I've learned a lot, and it's always really stimulating. Get your brain kicked into gear. Yeah, just travel. Go away, come back, and recognize. Really recognize what we have here. Try hard to look through other people's eyes. That doesn't sound very innovative, but we need a kick in the arse. We're in paradise right here, right? And people that come into this area, I've heard of the last 3 months that we've been open repetitively, and it's almost, it's just renewed my interest in why aren't we really embracing exactly what we have here? Hold true to your visions, hold true to your innovations. Don't let anybody knock you off. Surround yourself with positive people. If you got negative influences in your life that are downplaying your innovations and your ideas, just move on. Successful people are with other successful people. Innovative people are with other innovative people. And if you're going to play in this field, then those would be my tips for you guys. Very simple, but just remember at the core, that's what we need to be doing. And quality, Kirk couldn't said it better. You have to have quality products. Start with quality and end with quality. It has to be that.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks to the entire panel. Can we give them a big round of applause? And of course, thank you to all of you for coming out. It's wonderful to see so many faces here today that are supporting what Devour is doing and what the Valley Regional Enterprise Network are doing, and what innovation of agriculture means to all of you. So thanks so much for coming out. Have a great rest of your day and weekend, and we'll see you again.
I'm just going to say a few words. It's just a few housekeeping things, so if you could just hold your horses just for a second. I know you've been sitting for a while. Obviously, it goes without saying that we'd like to give a big round of applause to Ted Grant. The idea for this panel discussion, and thank you all so much from the heart, it was fabulous. The idea for this came from Michael Howell and from Leah Ronaldo, and Ted Grant really took it, he understood it, he's developed it. So thank you very much. And like any good meal, this is just to whet your appetite. Presumably you have more questions, presumably you would want to sit here and have a conversation with the panelists for a very long time and with each other. So it's the beginning of a conversation that we've just sort of planted ourselves into. I want to pick up on something very briefly that Andrew mentioned, and you've all talked about paradise, which this is, and truly it is. Thank you very much to wayfarers here in the village of Port Williams. It's another development, it's fabulous, it's building off the landscape. It's building off the soil, it's building off the land. Andrew, you mentioned the idea of a vision that you had, an image that you could see on video. I have the same vision, and the Valley Rain is actually going to begin working with COG, so the Centre for Geographic Sciences in Lawrencetown, part of the community college system, and the Centre for Applied Research, Applied Geomatics Research at the Middleton campus of the Nova Scotia Community College, which, as you know, was instrumental in doing climate research, which has seeded vineyards all up and down the Clarence Road area of the Annapolis Valley. Very, very significant. And we're going to be asking them to do just that. How can you use your R&D? How can you use your technical capacity in the community college system to convey this idea that innovation does grow here in the Annapolis Valley, and then from that to build on all of the assets. One other thing that I just want to mention briefly is what we have here is an embodiment not just of innovation, which is a buzzword, it's very much a government buzzword, but we have you working it every day. You've brought your stories to us, and it's the stories that we will remember. So thank you very much to the panelists. If you're wondering how we can thank them enough, Devour has given our panelists and Ted passes to Devour Festival, and we have 2 limited access registration badges for the remainder of the Devour Festival. So that would be all day today, all day Saturday, and right through to Sunday evening. So if you were smart enough to put your business card into a fishbowl, Debbie from the Valley Rain is just going to pull out 2 names. If you think you can't use the registration badge, please find someone else and pass it to them. They're totally transferable, so even if you can get to a couple of events at Devour and then pass it on to someone else, they'll recognise it. It is limited access though, so you won't get guaranteed seating, but if there's an opportunity to attend an event, you can use that. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for all of your work, because you're all involved in innovation in some way. And there's a networking session and there's food from Union Street Cafe, so please enjoy.